Gary Ivory is our guest on In Focus today. Gary is the general manager of the Douglas County PUD, which has been in the news recently due to a set of new proposed rates that would affect the cryptocurrency and the data processing industry in Douglas County. In fact, apparently the Board of Commissioners for the PUD is set to take action on this new restructured rate schedule, and he's here to tell us more about it and how we got to where we are today. Not a very popular move, but if you talk to some of the junior taxing districts who feel that this may be a little onerous, or even the businesses affected by the rate increases. But Gary, maybe you can walk us through why we're looking at these rate increases now.
Yeah, you bet, Steve. Thank you, first of all, for inviting me here today to talk about this
Nice to have you
issue.
here. It's my first opportunity to talk to you.
Yeah, very important issue for Douglas PUD, and we've been working on this for a long time. Back in May of 2019, we set about a process that included a lot of educational opportunities for our commissioners and anybody that wanted to attend our public meetings. We also set out to get feedback from our customers about the fact that Douglas PUD is running out of a very valuable resource. The Wells Hydroelectric Project produces power for our utility. And our long-term planning shows that by 2029, if we continue to grow at the pace that we're growing at today, we would be running out of power from that project.
Growth meaning population, or what do you mean?
Data center and cryptocurrency
specifically.
Growth specifically, yeah. Our planning showed that if we added 50 megawatts, we would be deficient 6 months out of the year. So we would have to go out to the power markets and purchase power. And that's very concerning for a utility that looks forward into the future a long ways. And so we had to grapple with that issue. You know, running out of resource is not a good thing. People like to flip their light switches on, and they like the power to come on when they do that. And so it's very important for us to have the resource available to customers long term. But in the last, typically our utility has seen growth rates between 1.4, 1.5%. In 2017, that clicked up to 10%. 2018, we had another 10% bump. And then in 2019, we saw 20% growth. And all that growth is really attributed to the cryptocurrency and data mining industries that have developed in our area.
Goodness. So you're not alone in this challenge of trying to meet that demand. I know that Chelan County PUD went through a similar process here. Also, like you, implemented a moratorium on new service requests. So again, you started back in May of last year, you said?
We did, yeah, May of 2019.
And you've gone through, you feel, which was an adequate public review process?
Well, the port, all of the regional folks knew. We announced it at some different Douglas County meetings that we were going through this process. They all knew about that process and that we were trying to wrap that up by the end of the year. Our processes typically, involve budgeting and strategic planning, and those all get wrapped up toward the end of the year, and then we adopt new rates typically on January 1st, and we move forward with those new rates.
So I know that you have received some pushback from, first of all, the industry, the businesses affected by the rates, but also from the port, recently formed Regional Port Authority, as well as some of the junior taxing districts as well. Were you surprised to get that, to hear of the objections?
I was surprised and maybe a little bit disappointed that they've taken the tack that they have. But when we did hear their concern, we immediately pulled back on the reins and welcomed their input and welcomed the public comment from the public. So since December, our meeting on December 23rd, we've had other meetings, and I've made myself available to anybody that wants to come into my office and talk to me about this issue. And so we have held off on the rate increases that we proposed, and we've adjusted those a little bit also for the for the meeting on the 27th, where our commissioners have asked that I put those items on the agenda again for them to consider.
So, have you had a chance to digest the letter that you received recently from the Port Authority? They were offering some suggestions on possible alternatives to raising rates, such as, say, issuing bonds for the work that you say that you need to do at the Wells Project. And maybe, first of all, let's outline what's happening at the Wells Project that requires additional revenue.
Yeah, so first of all, I want to say there's some great things happening at Douglas PUD. Things that general managers previous to me, they worked their whole careers to get the PUD in a position where we can do a lot of these capital projects without going to the debt markets, to the bond markets to get money. It costs us about $1 million in attorney fees and underwriting fees to go out and do a bond issue. Just to get the bonds, it costs us about $1 million. That excludes all the interest related to the debt that we have to pay off. So our utility, we're very fiscally conservative. Our mission is to provide the best possible utility services at the lowest possible cost. So part of that is trying to curb this debt process that we go through because it's so expensive.
What is your current debt service right now?
We have
long term.
Yeah, we have about $150 million outstanding on the Wells project and around $20 or $21 million outstanding on our distribution project. But we are refurbishing the Wells Dam right now. We're going through each unit. You know, that dam is 50 years old. I don't know if you drive a 50-year-old car, but when they have, I don't know if they had air conditioning, but they had those old radios, you know, maybe an AM radio, no digital components, no windows that rolled up and down automatically. You had to crank the windows. That dam is 50 years old, and there are a lot of very old components there that need to be refurbished. It costs us about $2 to $3 million a month to do that right now, and we're doing that all with cash. We're not financing that right now at all. And so long term, that's going to save our customers millions and millions of dollars. We're going to be able to maintain these low rates into the future. And managers previous to me have worked on that. We've tried to get ourselves into a position where we don't have to issue additional debt. I know a lot of government agencies seem to love debt, and they love to take all that debt on and push all that out to future generations. That's not our philosophy at Douglas PUD. We want to try and do everything we can without taking out debt. And so we've put ourselves in that position, but it's taken a lot of time to do that. The port would like to see us fund some of these projects and push them off onto future generations and potentially give these data centers, though, lower rate increases. So there's a little bit of a disagreement there in policy.
Let's talk about the rates first of all that are being proposed for those high-end users. Let's say, non-diverse load users, I guess is what you refer to them as. What are they currently paying, and what's the proposed rate increase, and how will they be impacted?
Yeah, so SABY data centers are paying around 2.4 cents right now for their kilowatt hour charge. After 5 years, their kilowatt hour charge would be up to about 3.9 cents per kilowatt hour. So still far below the state average and far below the national average. The state average is around 7 cents. So they're concerned. It is a large increase. There's no doubt about that. These are big increases. One thing we learned through the customer feedback process, we got over 500 responses from customers, and 400 of those responses told us, hold the data centers accountable. They're using all the power. Focus the rate increases and the proposals on those industries because they're the ones that are creating the problem. And so that's what our policymakers have chosen to do.
What do you see as the Douglas County PUD's role in economic development? Because I think that's one of the main, thrusts of the Port Authority's argument. Is that anything you do is going to have a trickle-down impact on business, new business development, and the development of our economy.
First of all, we want to see business development that is measured and sustainable over long periods of time. We're not anti-business development. We're open for business. We want to see businesses develop here. The sustainability of the growth related to cryptocurrency and blockchain and data is just not there for us. We've got to procure other resources for those industries to grow here in Douglas County, and we're open to doing that. We can procure other resources that those industries can use. But the Wells project power is getting used up very rapidly, and we just don't have enough of that resource to dedicate to those industries in the future.
Well, we're talking too about the Wells Dam project, not just the dam operations, but you also have some other issues, I guess, that you have to address in terms of embankment fortification and that type of thing. What's going on there?
Yeah, so we have earthen embankments on both sides of our hydro combine. And the earth embankment on the east side of the project has had sinkholes over time. Back in the 60s, after the dam was built, we had a small sinkhole. In the 90s, we had a larger sinkhole, about 14 feet deep. So these sinkholes that have developed on the dam are signs that there are problems with those structures. They're engineered structures that we have over time that over time need some maintenance on them. There are new seismic standards that we have to uphold, and the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission has approached us, their dam safety folks, and said, you guys need to start looking at this east embankment, and you need to fortify it a little bit in case we have a situation where we have a large earthquake, that embankment could potentially fail, and nobody wants to see that.
So how much are these rate increases tied to that part of the project?
So that project is probably 7 to 10 years away, and these rate increases are necessary to get our financial position in a place where we can begin to pay the debt service related to a large project like that. This is something that we are going to have to go out to borrow for probably, because some of the early estimates are around $500 million, and the dam cost us about $250 million to build. So a $500 million bill is a very big bill for a small utility like Douglas PUD.
One final item, I have to bring this up because I've always wondered. I'm a Douglas County PUD customer myself, so
Great.
I have a concern there. By the way, are residential rates going to be affected by this increase?
So residential rates are going to go up about 40 cents a month related to this rate increase.
And that's phased in, or?
It will be 40 cents the first year. In January 1st, 2021, residential rates will go up about 40 cents. And then each year thereafter, another 40 cents or so.
For 5 years?
For 5 years.
Gotcha. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, so we're affected as well.
Mm-hmm.
My question has to do with, what I perceived as a lack of collaboration between Chelan, Grant, and Douglas County in not necessarily setting the rates, but in planning how to address the increase in demand from these types of industries.
Yeah, and each utility has kind of taken a different approach toward that. I think from what I've seen of Chelan PUD, they bumped their rates up, I think, in April of 2020 this year. I believe their rate will go up significantly. Grant PUD did something similar. They popped their rates up to some big significant number, and I can't give you the number off the top of my head, but what we chose to do is put these rate increases in place and give our customers a plan for where Douglas PUD is headed with them. And 10% on 2.4 cents is not very much money, and so they'll see some increases, but over time it will allow them to plan and get themselves into a position where they can either further invest in their cryptocurrency machines or potentially take those machines elsewhere. We hate to see that, but we hope that they're able to continue to operate here, but it gives them a roadmap for the future.
Okay, well, the bottom line is the PUD Board of Commissioners will be meeting again on January 27th to take final action on this, so you feel confident that it's gone through an adequate public review process and that all of your due diligence is complete.
We think we've done a great job, yeah, reaching out to customers and communicating with anybody that wants to communicate with us. We're a very open agency, and we welcome public comment.
Well, I would give you the last word here, Gary Ivory, on what you want your customers to know.
Well, we want our customers to know that things are going very well at Douglas PUD. The interesting thing is, I know these rate increases are in the news, but what our customers really care about is fiber optics, right? When are you going to get fiber optics to
I got
my
it.
house?
I got fiber
You
to my
fiber
house.
at your house?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you're one of the great few, well, actually many that have fiber optics now. We have about 19,000 meters. We've passed about 16,000 meters. We have a few pockets in East Wenatchee, but most of the customers now are out in the, I would call, ultra-rural area of the plateau, the northern Douglas County folks up in the Rex and Cooley Dam area, and we're actually pulling fiber optics out into those areas so that we can hook those customers up and give them the same capabilities that you have here in East Wenatchee. And I'll tell you, that's a life-changing thing for customers to get those fiber optics at their home.
We definitely appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Maybe we can get you back in here in the future.
Sounds great.
Great.
Thanks.
Gary Ivory joining us today on In Focus. I'm Steve Hare for NCW Life.